Welcome back. You're still watching Inside Politics on KTN News. I'm still in studio with political risk analyst Dismas Mukua, communication strategist Mark Bichachi, and political strategist Kipchumba Karori, who is also an advocate on High Court. We'll continue to look at the possible political alignment scenarios ahead of the next elections. We've looked at two so far. Now we need to look at the other three, because there are five as outlined on the Sunday Standard, and this is one more reason why you should get yourself a copy of the Sunday Standard today. It makes for a very good read. Just before the break, we were talking about the second scenario where Raila Odinga combines with the third force, that is the One Kenya Alliance, as well as the Mount Kenya Unity Forum, and produce one single candidate to run against William Ruto. Now we want to flip the coin. And what if William Ruto combines with the One Kenya Alliance together with Mount Kenya Unity Forum? They join forces to run against Raila Odinga. Let's start with Kipchumba Karori. What would that portend?
First of all, Fred, I think there is a narrative we need to destroy in this panel when we come here and sit here, because the narrative that there is something known as Mount Kenya Foundation in exclusion of other regions. All votes matter in this country. And there is also need...
The correction is, I'm talking about the Mount Kenya Unity Forum, not Mount Kenya Foundation. Mount Kenya Unity Forum being the combination of Martha Karua, Mwangi Kiunjuri, and Moses Kuria, that formation.
But actually, even the better, we need to run away from that, Fred, because it is through those kind of tribal formations that we allow politicians to slip into power without telling us what they are going to do. Let us ask ourselves, what does a normal youth in Mount Kenya or a mama who is by the roadside selling potatoes in Mount Kenya wants? But when we come back to the discussion, if today you are to get what Bichachi calls Mount Kenya lock and store and barrel or something, and the OKA, it will be a wrap, Fred, because if you are to give William Ruto all those things, he will be already there. But at the end of the day, the discussion you need to ask is a discussion about numbers, is a discussion about how do these people come on board, how will they affect the numbers of William Ruto, the numbers he already has. Because, Fred, there is another danger. If Bichachi and Kipchumba come from the same stronghold, let's say in Bungoma. If Bichachi is in Camp A and I'm in Camp B, if you introduce me, at times it might be counterproductive and it might lead to other problems. Take, for example, today, you have a Kalonzo Musyoka and you introduce Charity Ngilu in your camp. If they are not jailed properly, it might be counterproductive. And remember what costed CORD in 2013. They brought together a good coalition, but they did not jail the parties at the lower level. They lost so many seats because of that. So at the end of the day, whereas the presidential level will be unanimous, at the lower level they might suffer backlash in terms of parliamentary strength because of what I will call what amphoteric competition that will eat into each other, allowing the other people to win.
Okay. Mark Bichachi, of course, there's something to be said about the kind of baggage anyone combining with such a huge caucusing of politicians would have to undergo once they win the presidency. But let's just, for the sake of argument, if at all that scenario plays out, do you agree with Kipchumba that it will be a walkthrough for William Ruto?
Well, let me define what a win for William Ruto is. A win for William Ruto is 100% of the Kalenjin Rift and 100% of Mount Kenya. The only people who are offering a serious form of dissent from a unified Mount Kenya is the forum that you've just talked about. And so what we need to understand is this, and let me give a very simple analogy, and I will use Githeri as an example. The winning Githeri of 2013 was Kikuyu maize, Kalenjin beans, and a few potatoes from around the country. That was the winning Githeri. The winning Githeri in 2017 was again Kikuyu beans, Kalenjin maize, and a lot of cabbage and potatoes from around the country, which is why Jubilee won a lot more seats even in Western Kenya. Now, the question then is this. does William Ruto have the right githeri? Now, so far, his githeri seems to have a lot more maize, questionable amounts of beans, and a few potatoes and cabbages here and there. Raila Odinga has originally had a very diverse githeri. He's had sprinklings of support everywhere. The question is, can he hold one Kenya together? Now, if Raila Odinga is stripped of one Kenya, we can see what his strategy is: to use retiring governors who, by the way, have clout, they have resources within those regions, to try and stem the tide that is caused by one Kenya living. So my prediction would still be that William Ruto would have a bigger chance than Raila Odinga. But in what Raila is doing, Odinga is doing, in coalescing with retiring governors, will give him a chance to hold a candle. But you'd have, if you are, I was a betting man, and one Kenya and Mount Kenya is lock, stock, and barrel with William Ruto, I would bet on William Ruto.
Okay, Dismas?
Well, the probability of an alliance or a coalition where Raila Odinga is winning is much higher than the one of William Samoei Ruto, for one reason, that Raila already has got a plan B. That are in the unlikely events that he doesn't get the One Kenya Alliance and Mount Kenya Unity Forum, he's already activated Plan B. In Western Kenya, the Plan B is Governor Oparanya. In fact, all the governors in Western Kenya are part of William Ruto's, are part of Raila Odinga's Plan B. And the same in Kisii. So probability of a ticket winning where Raila Odinga is significantly higher compared to any ticket elsewhere. Because when people go back to the rubber and they start looking at the real politics, they'll ask themselves, among these tickets, which one can we trust? Which one can we take to the bank? And which one serves our national and public interest? And for some reason, I don't know why some people think that Raila Odinga is seated under a mango tree and is not doing these scenario analysis, sensitivity analysis, permutations and combinations to the effect that if he doesn't get the Mount Kenya Unity Forum backing him, or he doesn't get the One Kenya Alliance, what is his plan B? And the plan B has already been activated. You must be a stranger in Jerusalem not to see that he is already activated the plan B so that it delivers on its value. Like, for instance, the other day when he was in Western Kenya, you saw Governor Oparanya. Yesterday when he was in Rift Valley, you saw Governor Lee Kinyanjui. Okay. That is a plan B which is being activated to secure his win.
Okay, now let's take a look at the third scenario, and this one is very straightforward. It has all these candidates who've declared interest running on their own. Raila Odinga running, Musalia Mudavadi doing the same, Kalonzo Musyoka running, Gideon Moi, William Ruto, including other candidates like Moisa Kitui, Ruben Kigame, and Mwangi wa Iria. Kipchumba Karori, let's start with you again. This scenario, because it would mean that none combines with the other, and everyone is eating into everyone else's possible voting block.
Fred, again, I go to the analysis. If today everybody is on their own, and we say today William Ruto is a candidate, Raila Odinga and the others, Musalia on their own, Gideon Moi and Kalonzo Musyoka, this is how it will pan out. Let's start from, for example, the Northeastern. Having the three candidates, it will be a battle between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. And in those two, the constituency that Raila Odinga will win will be in Wajir County. The other two counties, William Ruto will win Marsabit and will win Isiolo. Raila Odinga will have taken Wajir. We go to the coast. The coast, it will be a battle between the three, Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, and William Ruto. We go to Nairobi. Nairobi, it will be a battle between William Ruto and Raila Odinga. We go to Western. It will be a battle between the three again. Musalia Mudavadi will have an edge over the other two. But when the ballot comes, Raila Odinga will lead Musalia and then William will be the third. We come to Rift Valley. It will be a battle. It will not be a battle per se because it will be William Ruto and Raila Odinga, let's say, getting around 10%. We go to Nyanza, it will be Raila Odinga leading. So at the end of the day, when we go with that scenario and everybody gets their numbers, it will be a win for William Ruto very early in the morning. That one I can tell you without even blinking my eye.
Bichachi?
Well, I am tickled because Kipchumba is very consistent on his imagination that William would win. But let us look at the candidate and the party which has the most reach across the country. That would be ODM. Let's look at the party that has the most number of governors who would campaign for its candidate. That would be ODM. Let us look at the person who his politics, despite various forays into various regions of the country, most importantly Central, which I keep saying, Central is central to William Ruto's campaign. If we go by the Kiamba by-election and William Ruto gets 50% and Raila Odinga keeps his 25%, 30%, 40% in all the other regions and has his 100% in Nyanza, his 40% in Western, up to 50% if you ask me, and you compare that with William, well, you will understand the meaning of Kidogo Kidogo Jaza Kibaba, because the Kidogo Kidogo for Raila Odinga will be much more. So in a scenario where all of these candidates run, if you look at all of those regions, the party and the candidate that has traditionally and even in the last election has shown that it can hold together the most is ODM. Look at Joho, look at Oparanya, look at the Kisii governor, look at all these governors from across the country who are still loyal to ODM, and that is your biggest indicator as to which regions Raila would lead in. Now, second would be William Ruto. Third will be Kalonzo Musyoka. Mudavadi will come in fourth. And the rest, by the way, will have 2% ya kufuta machozi.
And possibly the question here would be, would it be easy or possible for someone to actually win in round one? Dismas, if this scenario plays out where everyone runs on their own, is it possible for one of the candidates just to get beyond the 50+1 threshold?
No, probability of any candidate getting 50+1 under that scenario is 0%, and that's why majority of these candidates will get into those permutations and combinations to ensure that they significantly reduce the probability of a runoff. Because the moment you go to a runoff, the candidate who is third and fourth, and depending on the numbers, immediately becomes very strong and may end up becoming stronger than the president and the deputy president in that administration, because they'll be coming with numbers. But when you look at the scenario where you have all those candidates, probability of a runoff is very high. But again, as we have this conversation, we must take into active consideration that it's very early in the day to start looking at those permutations, because as we have this conversation, the playing field right now is not fair. One of those candidates, William Samoei Ruto, has been campaigning proactively for the last 10 years, and the rest have just started. So for him right now, as we have this conversation, he has already hit the saturation point, and you are beginning to see the law of diminishing returns. And even when you look at the message, there is a message fatigue coming into place. Message fatigue developing has begun to develop. Okay. But I think when we have this conversation, God willing, in April next year, then the scoreboard will be very clear. But believe me,
by April next year, a lot will have been done. It will probably, the formations will be cut and solid ahead of the elections. Because of time, allow me to go to the last scenario, because this is a very interesting one, and it would make for very good conversation. Scenario number 5, Raila Odinga and William Ruto join forces. The One Kenya Alliance, that is Gideon, Mudavadi, Kalonzo, produced one candidate, and then a third force made up of the Mount Kenya Unity Forum and other entities. Kipchumba, if that was to happen.
Before we go to that ignoramus hypothesis, let me answer first of all Dismas Mokua. Dismas Mokua has aired in both fact and reality. The first candidate to announce his candidature, presidential candidature, is Musalia Mudavadi, where he's a resident strategist. So I don't know how he forgets his candidate. When coming back to your question, Raila Odinga addressed the Kalenjin nation a few days ago, and he said, where we are currently, I can't work with William Ruto. William Ruto is already a presidential candidate, and he will be a presidential candidate. So I don't see that happening, but because we were told...
It is politics. Anything can change.
I'm going there. We were told in politics, the first lesson in politics is that politics changes every minute, and a day in politics is so long. Anything can happen, but if that was to happen my friend Fred. What I will say is, one, we will petition the Supreme Court to declare them president and whoever will have agreed to be deputy, because it will be a waste of our government, national resources. But I can bet my life and the most precious part of it, my heart and kidney, that it will not happen.
Even without the support of Mount Kenya, a combination between Raila Odinga and William Ruto will be a winner. Mark?
You know, to be honest with you, William and Raila Odinga, as we sit here, already control 80% of the vote. The other candidates are fighting for 20 at best, realistically maybe even 10%. And therefore, if you combine these forces in any iteration, although of course we know one is illegal, William Ruto cannot be Raila's deputy. But if you combine them, whether it is Raila saying Ruto tosha or Raila eating humble pie and deciding to be his deputy, whichever permutation you have of that, I can guarantee you there is no point of having an election. In fact, a lot of people will not wake up to vote because it will be a foregone conclusion. But is it possible? Well, it is highly unlikely. It is unlikely because, number one, both of these candidates have created a platform of fighting the other. And therefore, the antagonist relationship between them will make for very bad Githeri stew. So I don't think it's going to work. It's highly unlikely, highly improbable. But the one thing that it will do is it will make for a very peaceful election period. And for those of us who watch the economy and the growth of our country, then it will be perhaps one of the most peaceful and prosperous years
in peaceful election, but what kind of combination in terms of running the country as a president and deputy? From what we've seen previously, remember the Grand Coalition government, the troubles it had with Raila Odinga there. We've seen the Jubilee government, the kind of troubles it had between the president and his deputy.
Fred, let me state this for the record. I know a lot of politicians cast aspersions on the Nusu Mkate government, but if you look at the numbers, the best economic performing government was the Nusu Mkate government.
Okay.
There is something magical that happens every time the mountain shakes hands with that lake region. So let's underline and underscore that. I do not try to even tell Kenyans that Nusu Mkate is a bad thing.
Let's give Dismas Mukua an opportunity as well. Dismas, what do you make of that?
Now, when you look at that combination, it's got only two positions. That at the head of the ticket is going to be William Samoei Ruto, and then Raila Odinga means it's going to be the deputy president. Now, if you have that scenario, probability of people supporting that ticket, and I beg to differ with Mark Bichache, is almost zero, because people have been supporting Raila Odinga for the longest time because they want him to be the president of the Republic of Kenya. Not to be the deputy president, not to be the vice president. So the moment he concedes and he says that I'm going to be a running mate, then his support base is just going to evaporate like rain in Kisii.
Wow. Interesting. But let's take a look at some other, because now we've exhausted the scenarios as posed by the Standard, the Sunday Standard today. But Taifa Jumapili talks about a possible ticket between with the Raila Odinga and Martha Karua, and this brings about the issue of Mount Kenya. And the question now is, Martha Karua emerging as probably the best choice of running mate, if at all anyone is to go the Mount Kenya way in choosing a running mate? Kipchumba.
Fred, I am afraid I respect Martha Karua in two fronts, both as my senior in the profession, and secondly, as a politician who has done a lot, both from the the second liberation moments of our nation, and even in the day-to-day political discourse. But I will ask the question, for you to choose somebody as a running mate, what do they bring on board in terms of the vote everybody is looking for, the youthful vote, and in terms of even bringing oomph to the campaign and the charm, and even reinvigorating the base? If we were to go to Mount Kenya today, there are several other actors who are above Martha Karua in terms of political muscle. The other question is this: we have the TikTok and the SportPesa generation of youth Where will they relate with the struggles of Mother Karua? Whereas Dismas Mokua and Bichachi and yourself might relate with them. Will the people who are born in 202, 203, will be the first-time voters, relate with her? And the answer will likely move towards the red, the no. So the answer is, she might have positioned herself as a strong politician, but she still lacks a few things inside her that will endear her to the Mount Kenya voting bloc, or even the national face, for that example, because there are the people who will be voting in this election, the 27+ million voters, most of them will be dynamic people. What are the thoughts of Mother Karua when it comes to innovation? What are her thoughts when it comes to unemployment? All those things, Fred, and at the end of the day, you have seen the kind of hubris in our campaign, both the two leading lights, both the UDA and the ODM. There is so much hubris. Where will she fit? That is the discussion we need to have.
So even for William Ruto, this should not be a consideration?
No, the question is, and we go back to those things, for you to bring on board a running mate, you need to look at 3-4 things. The numbers, her messaging, her positioning. If, for example, today I'm taking Mark Bichachi as my running mate, I need to ask myself, will the people who support Mark Bichachi see the future in Mark Bichachi? The age of Mother Karua is approaching 60-something. Will somebody in Mount Kenya see the future through Mother Karua? Those are the kind of questions you need to have. How will it ignite the base, Fred, for example?
Okay.
How will it, and even the other thing, Fred, you need to ask yourself, both the political and the bank balance. You don't need to have a running mate who their bank balance is still a rumor or a secret. We need to see and know, if I'm bringing you on board, you are at least pushing 3 stones out of the 5.
Okay, Mark Bichachi, even for the optics, having a female as your running mate for Raila Odinga, because this is a suggestion on the front page of Taifa Jumapili today. Definitely where there's smoke, there's definitely fire. For the optics, how would it look?
Well, Fred, you know, you've just touched the crux of the matter, because Martha Karua, what she brings on the table is that air of credibility, that air of fighting corruption, that air of straight talk, and that air of creating a better country. She is well known both then and now as a reformist, as someone who believes in the rule of law, someone who is consistently stuck to her guns when it comes to doing the right thing. Now, she is not alone in this category. To add to that number, you've got people like Muhisa Kitui, you've got Professor Kivuta Kibwana, who present themselves as paragons of virtue. Now, the reason why you would want to add these people to your ticket is not because of numbers, because none of them can say that, listen, I have the Luya in Muhisa Kituyu's case, or the Kamba in Kivuta Kibwana's case, or the Kikuyu locked in, this is X amount of votes I am bringing. These are candidates that are basically coming to polish your already well-made shoe. So the reality is you do need them. I think that having Martha Karua in your campaign is an asset, but you need to understand that when you're making your githeri, and you need your githeri to look nice and to feed many people, then you must understand that these candidates are at best the onions or the nyanyas. They are not the beans, they are not the maize, they are not the potatoes, because they simply do not have the political numbers. But do they add taste? Do they add flavor? Do they increase the look and feel of your product? Yes, they do. So this is about how you're going to garnish your meal. It cannot be the main course.
Okay, but even the garnish actually adds to the optics and probably the attraction to whatever it is you would want to take, whether a drink or something else. Dismas, having a female as a running mate would definitely be an attractive proposition for any candidate. Exactly which person this will be is a question. But now with the suggestion of Mother Karua working with Raila Odinga, what do you make of that?
Well, all I would say is that whoever who's been retained by Martha Karua to do political communications is doing an amazing job, that now she's becoming a topic of conversation. And having a female as a running mate for any candidate, as you've indicated, is a very attractive proposition. But that candidature has to come with resources. And the resources would be the intellectual infrastructure, which she has in truckloads, and in a face of brand recognition, she's well recognized. But something which works against her is that she's seen to be too abrasive and very strong-willed politician. You remember not a long time ago, the late President Moi was having a rally in a village, and then she just decided to take a walk out of the president, just like that, like nothing has happened. When she got a bit disturbed with the Kibaki administration, she decided just to take a walk. And in my view, if anybody is going to retain Martha Karua as a running mate, it will be merely for optics, and those optics will not translate to numbers.
But the optics do matter.
Optics, of course, do matters. I mean, you've seen these razzmatazz politicians putting on yellow trousers, green trousers, red trousers. It matters. But when you're looking at a ticket, if the optics do not translate to numbers, then nobody is going to touch her. So I think for me, the best for her today is to be a key player of that Mount Kenya Unity Forum and elevate her conversation. Because you see now when she goes to negotiate with anybody, people will be asking her, what do you bring to the table apart from the brand recognition and optics? Because people will remind her that she just lost an election to Anne Waiguru, and people claim that she doesn't have financial resources. I don't know how Kipchumba Karori is able to have access to those details, but in my view, really, anybody will be taking that decision will be suggesting that they're not interested in winning the presidency.
Okay. Time now to take your call. We'll be doing that after
Fred,
the break. You can call. Kipchumba, you want to say something?
Yes,
briefly?
Dismas Mokua has said my name in an unbecoming manner.
Defend yourself.
We need to say this. Just the same way we have no non-written documents or written papers, academia papers, from the senior counsel, Martha Karua, is the same way about the issue of finances. So he cannot claim to have a higher authority to discuss the truckload of his intellectual rigor than I have to discuss about finances. Secondly, we are not talking about branding communication company or beer companies. We are talking about politics. When the day it boils down to numbers, if you don't have the numbers, you can come with as much credibility as possible. We had a candidate known as a professor from a university who was a PS. He had the best credibility, but we don't know how much votes he got. So it just credibility can't be the only thing. We want numbers.
Okay. Let's take a break, and after this break, we'll be getting your views as our viewers. The number, we'll be sharing it there on your screen. Make a call. Let us know your opinion and comments regarding today's discussion, the political alignment scenarios, the possible scenarios, some very interesting ones, but we'll be talking to you after the break.